Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Fight Night Rochester. Dos Anjos versus Lee. Anybody who's watching the show right now probably going, what the hell happened to Shag? He had this big, luscious beard.
And hair.
Luscious hair. All right, well, Cody Saftic here with me. I'll have to...
Observing what happened, and looks like you you were that devoted to Rose Namajunas that you decided to go all out.
Yeah, came in here looking like Rose Namajunas this week. Obviously, without a case of the dizzies. Got my energy.
But you have had cases of the dizzies in the past.
I got my energy drinks to remedy that. So this morning, I like to try to make myself look a little bit, pretty myself up, doll myself up for the show, for the fans, everything like that.
Not show up homeless looking like myself.
I had my beard trimmer, and then the little small attachment where you kind of go around the court, around here, and clean up this part.
Yeah.
I botched it, man. It was super wide over to here, and then over here, and I was just like, shit. All right, so what I had to do, I was just like, it's coming off. So it came off. But then I saw myself with the long hair, it was getting pretty long.
Yeah.
And the completely baby face. I was just like, this ain't happening. So I'm right back to clean slate.
You look
clean
25,
slate.
Paul.
That's good. That's what I'm going for. I'm considerably older than that. Anyway, before people were like, what happened? What happened? Who is that guy? I probably look considerably different.
They thought I replaced you. In fact, Grease theory of the week is Paul died last weekend.
Yeah.
And this guy's a fucking complete imposter, but I'll leave that up to the comment section.
All right. Before we get into this week's card, we have winners from last week. Our winner, it's Pascho, Pascho 3. You are the winner of $20 DK. I've been seeing people throughout the course of the week as it's PGA Championship.
Yeah.
All cashing in on their money. So I assume, Pascho, that you have it. If you don't have it, it's coming. So congratulations to you. This week, we have another challenge. So what you got to do is, 1, give the episode a like. 2, leave your DK handle. And 3, say, this card, lots of big favorites top to bottom, Cody. It's going to be an apple pie shitter.
Oh, 100% is going to be.
So what we got to do is say who you think is going to be the apple pie shitter this week. And people who don't know the apple pie shitter, somebody who's let's go above Aspen Ladd, because she's minus 290. I was going to say above minus 300. So Aspen Ladd, Davi Ramos, Charles Oliveira, and Julio Arce, who is the apple pie shitter who's going to bust everyone's parlays this week.
Well, I'm glad you took it, because if you were going to tee it up to me, I was going to say, did Paul Shaughnessy die last weekend? And if he didn't, what is the reasoning for this new look? But yeah, that's a better question. Who's going to shit in the apple pie? And hopefully they're not on my parlay.
I got slammed. That's what happened.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that up to other people to speculate.
All right, so main event, we've got Rafael Dos Anjos taking on Kevin Lee. Rafael Dos Anjos, 8,200, minus 120 favorite. Kevin Lee is 8,000 and plus 100. This is a welterweight fight. Kevin Lee moving up, which should help a lot of problems that we've seen with him in the past. Is these 5-round fights, going the distance. The guy has a very solid game. But when he's not dominating, when he's not controlling from top, he seems to slow down. And we've seen that in a bunch of his fights before. Well, maybe if he doesn't shed an extra 15 pounds, he's always been a very, very massive 155er. He's one of the guys who's always asking for the 165-pound division to happen. Both of these guys would actually be
perfect. Yeah, they're in the same boat.
Would be right in that perfect the honey spot, or what's the word I'm looking for? Either way, you catch my drift. Both of these guys at 165, that would probably be the perfect weight class for them. Rafael Dos Anjos has been up here for a while. He's definitely gotten thicker. He's put on some muscle mass, everything like that. Question is, have we seen the best of Rafael Dos Anjos at this point?
Possible.
It's very, very possible. Obviously, went in against Usman. Usman's the champion now. Usman was able to hold him up against the cage, control him. We go back to when he fought against Khabib. What is it, 2011, 2012? It was on my birthday, that Orlando card. And Khabib absolutely, did what Khabib does. He just takes you down at will and kind of does his thing. I've seen people say, oh, Kevin Lee, he can just watch that Khabib fight from years ago and just emulate that. That's how you beat Rafael Dos Anjos. And I maybe I'm a little bit too biased, but That's a really tall ask. Oh, just do what Khabib does. Yeah, the number one lightweight in the world that no one's even came close to. Easy. There's the template. Just follow that. It's like, yeah, it's that one. That was a 3-round fight. 2, Rafael dos Anjos
has improved a lot.
And 3, Kevin Lee. I see people always compare Kevin Lee and Khabib together. I don't think his wrestling's anywhere near what Khabib is able to do. I don't think there's really anybody except for like Gregor Gillespie at this weight class or at 155 that has wrestling on that level.
Yeah, fair. See, I'm not talking to anybody that's really going in depth in the comparison to Khabib. What I'm hearing a lot of is his last 2 fights, the Kamaru Usman fight and the Colby Covington fight. Usman takes him down 12 times, and Colby Covington takes him down 7 times. And if you go way back to the Khabib fight where he's taken down, I believe, 6 times, that is the blueprint to beating him. If you want to defeat Rafael dos Anjos, your best path to victory, unless you've got Eddie Alvarez, sweet little combination. The guy was butt naked on the bathroom floor struggling to make weight 24 hours earlier, and you catch him, you're probably going to have to take this guy down, smother him, grind him down, take his gas tank out of him, whatever you can do. But when you compare Kevin Lee to those other guys, Kevin Lee's 5'8", right? Kamaru Usman, 5'11", Colby Covington, 5'11".
Those guys are big 170s.
Those guys, in no world that exists, no parallel universe that exists, could either one of those guys make 155 pounds. It could not happen. Kevin Lee struggled to make 155, but he can make 155. He did make 155. Those guys are massively bigger than him. The other thing is that you got to look at the fact that Kevin Lee's wrestling. Okay, so Kevin Lee wrestled 1 year in college, and he was a D2 national national tournament qualifier, D2. Colby Covington was a former junior college national champion, a former 2-time Pac-10 champion in D1 out of Oregon, a former All-American D1 out of Oregon. Usman won a junior college title and a D2 title and was a 3-time All-American D2. The wrestling's not even comparable. Yes, Kevin Lee can wrestle. But when you watch Kevin Lee wrestle, he's strong and he's athletic. He gets a hold of you and he peels you to the ground almost immediately. There's no reshot. Usman and Colby Covington, they're all reshot. They're all chain wrestling. Colby Covington hardly ever gets the guy down on the first shot. It's the fact that he shoots 3 or 4 consecutive takedowns and eventually is able to get you to the ground. Kevin Lee doesn't do that. When you watch RDA struggle against Usman and Covington, it's because they're chain wrestling on him. Whereas Lee doesn't do that. So if he's able to keep this fight standing, and I'm getting the feeling he's going to be able to keep the fight standing, then it's a striking battle. And as far as striking battle goes, you got to go Rafael dos Anjos over Kevin Lee. If it was 3 rounds, sign me up some Kevin Lee. But 5 rounds, yeah, this is where Lee falters. If I told you tomorrow it's Al Iaquinta versus Rafael dos Anjos at 170 pounds, and it's mostly probably going to be a kickboxing match, let's face it, would you pick Al Iaquinta over him? No. So he struggled with Al striking, but he was able to mix in, the takedowns. With Tony, he struggled striking, but he's able to mix in the takedowns. With Rafael being the bigger guy and having notoriously good takedown defense, like, by the way, he got taken down by Colby 7 times on 18 attempts. He also took Colby down 3 times himself. So why can't that be part of the game plan? What if he surprises Kevin Lee, puts him on his back? The guy's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a better grappler than Kevin Lee. If you're looking at narrative, Kevin Lee should win. But if you're looking at what we've seen in recent performances, I think a lot of people look at Rafael dos Anjos and think, geez, he's 34 years old. Maybe he is shop-worn. Maybe USADA coming in definitely did change him. His best days were at 155. He hasn't looked bad at 170, but hasn't looked great at 170. It's easy to write him off. But as far as the actual style goes, your best bet's to pass. But what am I supposed to tell you to pass on the main event? I got to give you a pick here. And I'm thinking Rafael dos Anjos is able to pull it out.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Both of us like Rafael dos Anjos. He's the... I won't be shocked, by the way. Like, yeah, we're both making a pick here because people don't come here to be like, no, we're not going to make a pick on the fight. Like, I don't think I'm even going to bet it. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Kevin Lee. We've seen a long history of this. Like, people who really struggled, were limited when they would have to cut down. Like, Kelvin Gastelum comes to mind, obviously. It's like this guy really struggled every single time. He had some great fights at 170, but he was kind of rejuvenated by going up the extra 15 pounds, which made him a little bit small for the weight class. but allowed him to utilize all of his skills and strengths and stuff a lot more, and he was able to increase his gas tank and yada, yada, yada. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens for Kevin Lee, but yeah. Rafael dos Anjos.
You know what, though? Well. You've ridden this point a lot in the past, and you're absolutely right on it. But think about other guys in the past that have jumped up that weight class, and namely Dustin Poirier. Remember how when he first jumped up, he didn't quite fill out, but he's talented, and he can win.
Takes a few fights for you to put on that extra lean muscle
And
mass.
that's my problem with Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's a young guy. He's 26. He's probably stinted his growth by cutting that massive amount of 30, 40 pounds before a fight. He's probably hurt his body. Now at 170 pounds, it's not a quick fix. And again, he doesn't
like a
really
year
have...
from now at 170, he puts on an extra 5-6 pounds of like lean muscle mass. Maybe it's a different story if this matchup happened. But the first time they moved down, this is a hell of a test for your first time moving down to a new weight class. It's obviously not a big, massive welterweight, but still, Rafael dos Anjos has been at 170 for a bit now, so he's had that time to put on the muscle mass.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And Rafael dos Anjos, a guy that with lots of experience in 5-round fights, whereas Kevin Lee, experienced in 5-round fights, but not to the same level. Like, no one really questions Rafael dos Anjos' heart. No one questions his gas tank. No one questions his chin at 170. Certainly at 155, I guess you could make excuses because of the bad weight cut. But he's durable. And if there's one knock on Kevin Lee, he's got everything. He's good on the mic, you know? He can draw fans to hate him for the most part, but he can draw fans. He can wrestle. He can strike. He's fast. He's got it all. But you said it right at the top when we started talking about this fight. He could be the hammer, but he's not good at being the nail. And with Rafael dos Anjos, if you just smother him like Colby did and you smother him like Usman did, that's the way to beat him. But if he can't do that, and I'm getting a nagging suspicion that we're overplaying how good his wrestling is, if he can't do that and he's forced to strike, at some point he's going to be the nail. And at that point, he'll start to fatigue. And at that point, it could be a problem. So, yeah, I'm going to take Rafael. I think you got to have action on this main event. It's 5 rounds. If Kevin Lee wins. Kevin Lee, people got this perception of him that he's more of a decision guy. He's not, man. His last 4 or 5 wins, he's been thrashing people. And there's the other thing. Even though I am picking up Rafael dos Anjos, if the Kevin Lee that showed up in the Edson Barbosa fight shows up here, holy fuck, dude, that guy was on different levels. But rewatching that fight, Barbosa's got no hips. And when he does get taken down, no ability to get back up. Do you want to know why Usman's taking...
Khabib would already broken him at that point.
Yeah, but do you know why Usman's taken him down 12 times and Covington's taken him down 7 times on 18 attempts? It's because when he goes down, he's really good at getting back up. And that's the thing with Kevin Lee.
And that's going to tire out Kevin Lee more.
Yes, because when he has his way with Barbosa, it's no problem. He's easily able to peel him to the ground, easily able to mount. The first round with Tony Ferguson, the takedown's not a great takedown, but he gets him, he mounts him, the round ends, he's tired. So I don't know. I've got a lot of questions surrounding Kevin Lee, and for that reason, I'm going to give the old dog RDA one more shot.
We stay in the welterweight division. We have Vicente Luque taking on promotional newcomer Derek KRANTZ. This is supposed to be Neil Magny. There is DraftKings pricing out for it. Or sorry, there isn't DraftKings pricing out for it, but there was DraftKings pricing out for Vicente versus Magny, and it was 94.68, and it was like minus 500, plus 400, like it was in that range. So we have to imagine that obviously Vicente Luque is probably going to be an even bigger favorite against Derek KRANTZ. I'm guessing it's going to be like opening in like the minus 700, minus 800 range. If you had
considering
Vicente
PFL
Luque,
odds,
considering the odds
8,
that they had
at least
against
8 to open, and it'll go off at 11.
Yeah, considering the odds that they had released already for Magny, like Magny's a household name, somebody that we know, and like they had Vicente Luque as a massive favorite over him. So I don't know if you have anything on this guy KRANTZ to tell the good people about.
Yeah, Derek KRANTZ, D-Rock, my boy. Not fully my boy, but I've had the privilege of watching him a long time on the regional scene, Paul. Not only has he not made it to the UFC, he's not really made it to that next level. Yeah, some LFA fights. He used to fight for Legacy back in the day, but he's got this thing where right when he gets to that fight, that'll probably get him to the UFC.
He shits the bed.
He shits the bed. And if they didn't need a guy on a week's notice to fill in for this, I can't imagine that he'd be getting the call. But here he is. And good for him, because, I mean, he's a well-traveled veteran. He has lots of fights. He's done it all. It's nice to see him get his reward. But unfortunately, Vicente Luque, he gets a pile of these fights. Guys that are taking the fight on short notice and have no business being in there. They got balls, and they step up. And he goes off as a big favorite, and he demolishes them, and Derek KRANTZ is the exact same thing. I'll give Derek KRANTZ his respect where respect is due. These are just UFC veterans that he's fought. He's lost to Rich Clementi and Dustin Poirier. He's lost to Brian Melanson and Sean Spencer. He's got a loss to former Bellator champ Andrei Koreshkov. He lost to Jorge Patino, former welterweight title challenger. He's got a win over Kyle Bradley, Daniel Roberts, and Brock Larson, but a loss to Alex Morono. So he's 3-6 against UFC vets. Lost a split to Nakashima, but I thought he lost legit. So he's 3-6 against UFC veterans. And by the way, did any of those UFC veterans I just named, did any of them jump off the list? No. Like Patino's, he's an OG gangster, but the guy was like in his 40s and he lost that fight. It's a bad look. His recent win of opponents, Hayward Charles, I think he's 2-7 over his last 9. Cassius Kane, split decision, which he was getting rocked, lost earlier. Bad news. Another thing that's going to be bad for him is 2 fights ago, Hayward Charles. He actually took that fight at 185 pounds because Derek KRANTZ is kind of a big guy. So now he's taking a fight on a week's notice, which I can't imagine he was in particularly great shape. And you're stepping up to not just take a UFC debut, you're taking on Vicente Luque. Like, if his gas tank's not quite there, he's got a puncher's chance, that's it. And this is MMA. Everybody has a puncher's chance. So there's nothing I can tell you. I would say that you probably want to put Vicente Luque everywhere because not only can he knock out Derek KRANTZ, but he can also submit him. He likely does it within 2 rounds. He likely either gets a knockdown or a takedown.
He fights him just a barnstorming type of style. He attacks.
Yes.
He is an attacker. The thing that makes this interesting about it is because they had already released DraftKings pricing with Magny in there. Magny pulls out. Obviously, at the time of recording, the odds haven't been released. But usually what ends up happening is Vicente Luque will probably stay at 9,400, and Derek KRANTZ, they usually don't redo pricing.
We'll see what happens.
They usually don't redo pricing.
But
usually they don't.
They're going to move it. If they do move it, it'll be 9,800. I've never seen 10,000, so I can't assume that'll be an actual possibility.
What I think they'll do is they'll just add Derek KRANTZ into the system at 6,800, which was what Neil Magny was, and then the question becomes, do you just go all in on Luque? Because everyone's going to be all his odds, like his odds value versus the other guys at the top here. We'll get to all of those fights, but against ARCE, like he's probably going to have bigger odds. ARCE's like 650 plus or minus 650 favorite. I can't imagine Luque won't be more than that. Like he'll probably be minus 800 and it'll get up to like 11.
Listen, if Raoni Barcelos,
what I'm saying is,
I'm all over. But if Raoni Barcelos, who a fair price would have been 657, he got up to 11.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that like when they release this pricing, they usually don't remake the pricing. It's just like the late edition usually gets added to the system.
Going to be on everybody's lineup.
Everyone's going to own Luque. I can't really fault you on that.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. But again, MMA is a hell of a sport. But yeah, I mean, logic would dictate KRANTZ is in for a rough one.
All right, we move on down the card. We have Antonio Carlos Jr. taking on Ian Heinisch. Carlos Jr. is 8,700 minus 185 favorite. Heinisch is 7,500 and plus 165. Based on what I've seen around the industry this week, everybody and their mother has a bet on Ian Heinisch in the plus 180 to plus 160 range. So I imagine he is going to be the stone cold chalk underdog play. 7,500. Hey, he's coming off of a fight when he fought against Pereira. It's a very similar style matchup. Don't get taken down by this guy. Don't get taken down. Don't end up in those positions, and you can probably fight your way to a decision victory against Antonio Carlos Jr. Hey, like Pereira and Carlos Jr., not so different at all. Carlos Jr. probably has a better chin. It hasn't really been tested, but I mean, it's
his gas tank has. But his chin, he could take a punch.
I mean, it's Mutanche that we're talking about here, the comparable. But everyone's on that one side, and so that makes ACJ, who, hell, he's a potent finisher. If he gets you down, he gets you on top of you. He's super strong, especially in those early rounds. He can fish for that sub. He can fish for it very, very quick. I'm interested on DraftKings at least, 8,700 as a guy who becomes a leverage play against the rest of the field, has minus 185 to win odds. So like he's the favorite. And I think a lot of people are going to filter towards Heinisch. He'll probably be under-owned, and ACJ is usually very, very owned on every single card. So I'm interested in him as a DraftKings play. I haven't decided on the money line yet. What about you?
Yeah, I've been flip-flopping back and forth on this. I completely see the arguments for why Ian Heinisch... Listen, on a card that's got a ton of heavy favorites, if you're looking for a dog, he jumps out as a clear dog. That certainly has a chance. Whether he's getting too much love because of that and it's this type of card, I'm not sure. If this was a card that you liked 2-3 other plays, would you pass on this one? I'm not sure. It's going to come down to takedown defense. I think the reason there's so much love for Ian Heinisch is when you look at Antonio Carlos Jr., he's a quick finisher. He's got to get that finish done in a round, 2 rounds. Outside of that, he's completely, capable of gassing. We've seen it in the past. Also, he's been off for a year. So when you see him go in there, you think, geez, man, this guy's real impressive. Since the Dan Kelly fight, which is, I think, a notable comparison for what people think is going to happen here. But since the Dan Kelly fight, he beat Leonardo Guimaraes. There's no weight to that. He beat Marvin Vettori, who was really young, and it was a fucking close fight, man. Vettori could have won that. Not a great look. Eric Spicely won that first round against him, and then he's able to submit Spicely on a botched takedown attempt in round 2. That win has very little weight to it. The Jack Marshman fight, he subs him in the first round. That has very little weight to it. The Tim Boetsch fight, he submits him in the first round after Boetsch stuffs a couple takedowns. It doesn't have that much weight to it. He's blowing out fucking nobodies, Paul. Let's be honest here. And he's looked good doing it. But when was the last time it didn't work for him? Well, then you got to go back to the Dan Kelly fight. A fight that he looked good in the first round. He got a takedown over a 4-time Olympic judoka in Dan Kelly. And he takes his back in the first round. He has a great first round.
Let's just give ACJ a little bit of respect in terms of the fact that he's a young guy who's improving.
That's fair, but he's a young guy, and wrestling's not his base. And that's my one worry here, is if he can't take down Ian Heinisch, now he's got to worry on outstriking him. And I'll admit, dude, the guy's got some freakish length to him. Like, he's very tall, he's very long. He won the Ultimate Fighter at a heavyweight. It was a tiny heavyweight, but won it at heavyweight. And then he lost his first fight in the UFC against Pat Cummins at 205 pounds. At 185 pounds, the guy's monstrous. So I completely agree with you. It's that he has not fought more than 1 round in like 2 years plus. So I can't guarantee that if he goes out of the first round with Heinisch,
it's not going to be a complete meltdown.
It couldn't be a complete meltdown. Heinisch, flip side, has a great gas tank. He's known to push a pace. The fight with Cesar Ferreira, a lot of people forget. Heinisch took that fight on a couple weeks' notice, so that's probably not even the best version of him. No. He's not young, but you got to consider he's still developing because he had such a crazy life. Before he went to jail at Rikers and became a drug mule and all this and that, he was a 2-time state champion as far as high school wrestling goes. The thing is that Cesar Ferreira plows him to the ground 3 times and is unable to hold him down. If Antonio Carlos Jr. plows him to the ground 3 times, he might not live to tell the tale, right? Carlos Jr. is a better Ferreira's black belt, but Carlos Jr. is a better black belt, and certainly a guy that if he does take you down, he ends up on your back. If he ends up on your back, he's going to choke you out. Heinisch has got problems. Heinisch's only pro loss also to Marcus Perez by first-round submission, a sneaky little submission. So they're both capable of winning, and they're both capable of losing. Again, this fight has to be a pass, but a lot of people are probably thinking to themselves, it's a dogger pass, and for that reason, they're betting Heinisch, and that's why I see a lot of love. Very curious to the fact that I have seen a lot of people betting Heinisch, and it hasn't even fucking moved the number one bit. So I don't know what that means.
You know what that reminds me of?
The bookie's probably
my Thiago Alves bet last week. Sorry to anybody who tailed me on that. I'm an idiot.
It was a bettable fight.
That line did not move. That line did not move all week, and I got more nervous as the week went on.
Yeah. So that's something. Some buyer beware, should you say?
Hondo P. All right, we got Megan Anderson taking on Felicia Spencer. Megan Anderson, 8,500 minus 160 favorite. Spencer, 7,700 plus 140. What's your take here?
So if you're looking for apple pie shitters, I think it's one of those last 2 fights. Because Carlos Jr. or Megan Anderson, one of them is going to lose. And I'm having a trouble figuring out
those
which
people are
which
not
one
part
is
of the
going
draw
to be.
for $20 DK though, Cody.
No, I know. I'm just saying. If people have a good lean on one of the favorites here, like Jr. or Megan Anderson, like they're prone to having a screw up.
Yeah.
As far as the dogs that I like Heinisch, I like Felicia Spencer. I don't know if both of them are going to win, but they both got the type of skill set that if they show up on here's the thing with Felicia Spencer. She's not all that good. She really isn't. But the one thing that she is kind of good at, which is bulldozing forward, pushing her opponent against the cage, grinding them, eventually getting to them to the ground, and then out-grappling them.
Kryptonite.
It's Megan Anderson's kryptonite. And you can say all the things in the world about how I'm sure she's improved since the Holly Holm fight. Maybe she has, but you don't know that she has. And for that reason, you can't feel confident at Megan Anderson 160. What you should feel confident is, which is another thing that makes me... This is another murky fight for myself, but Megan Anderson's 6 feet tall. There's only 2 featherweights in the UFC, her and Cyborg. Everybody else is masquerading as a featherweight, but it's truthfully a bantamweight. Felicia Spencer is no different. She weighed in for her last fight at 143 pounds. So that would be an indication to me. And
That's what she walks around at when she's in shape.
And when you see her, Paul, she doesn't appear to physically be in shape. She could make 135 pounds, no doubt. And I've seen people argue she could make 125 pounds. But she's married. She's got a kid. She's a high school math teacher. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a Taekwondo black belt. Been doing martial arts since she's 3 years old. She's a smart girl, lifelong martial artist. She's not in particularly great shape. I think her wrestling, people are overplaying a little bit. She can get opponents to the ground, but what opponents? So all I'm saying is she's 5'6". She's going to be coming in against Megan Anderson, and it's going to be a hell of a size difference. But the best way to negate a size difference is to take the person down.
Yep.
So I think there's some merit to Spencer. She's $7,700.
I like
She's
her,
got a nasty little submission game. Yeah, go ahead.
Better as a draft. I think she's a better DraftKings play than HEINISCH, just because that path to victory is the wrestling-based path to victory, and that's what scores in this game.
There's one knock there, though, for myself, is that if HEINISCH is going to win and he's able to tire out Antonio Carlos Jr.,
probably gets a finish.
He could get a finish. Felicia Spencer, if she can't get the takedown, it's okay for the money line play because she'll just hold her against the cage. I've seen her do it a bunch of times. And Megan Anderson against Holly Holm. This is Holly Holm, dog. This is a future Hall of Fame pro boxer who is known for her striking prowess in MMA. And it's not just the takedowns that Holm's able to get on her. It's the fact that she's able to control her rather easily against the cage. And when she does get her to the ground, she's able to control her rather easily on the ground. So Megan Anderson's problem is if she does get taken down, that's it. It's not like you need multiple takedowns against her. You really just need to get her once or twice, and that's it. As far as her striking goes, she's going to have a massive striking advantage here. But she doesn't use her length all that well. She goes in there, she throws a lot of high kicks, she throws a lot of big winging hooks. That allows a shorter opponent to just bulldoze forward, which I expect Spencer to do. I can't say with any vote of confidence that I'm going to put a considerable amount of money on Felicia Spencer, because watching tape on her, she's super green, she's super inexperienced, UFC debut, 28 years old, hasn't really, Pam Sorensen, the biggest win on her record, hasn't fought on anybody. 6-1 as an amateur, that's okay, but that's just amateur stuff. But she's a black belt. She's a Taekwondo black belt. Her striking, Paul, is almost exclusively high kicks. But against Megan Anderson, that's not really an option because you're 5'6" and she's 6 feet tall. And there's a lot of factors that play against her. But there's a lot that plays in her favor. It becomes
more of an option when you're not worried about wrestling against people, though. You can just spam kicks. Hopefully they take you down, and if you're confident that you're a better grappler, it's kind of like what Brian Ortega does, right? He just throws complete spin. I don't think that she is athletically gifted to play this type of game, but that's the type of game that he plays. It's just spams a bunch of high kicks and spinning shit. Because you're not gonna take me down.
Oh, of course, Ronnie Yaya has made a career out of it as well. It's just I'll just kick you a bunch, and at any point if you come near me, I'll flop over to my ass, and it's not like you're gonna come down and get some. Sorry, thanks for bringing that up though. Her bottom game's not very good. It's not as if she's submitting people off her back. All of her wins are she dominates these girls from top, takes a rear naked, and submits them. That's her move. She's a power fighter. But if Megan Anderson has a hole that we've all seen, that what's her glaring weakness is bully her against the cage, throw her to the ground, and grind her up. And that's almost exclusively really who Felicia Spencer is. But she's giving up a big striking advantage and a big size advantage. And if it wasn't for the fact that I love betting wrestlers and grinders over spotty strikers with lackluster takedown defense, this is just my kind of spot. But a smart man would pass on this fight. That's my thought.
But we got to make plays on something here.
No, I know. It's a tough card.
It's a very tough card.
And then you're going to get to a bunch of big favorites.
Yeah, which Charles Oliveira takes on Nick LENTZ. 9,300, Charles Oliveira minus 365. Nick LENTZ is 6,900 and plus 305. What you got?
I mean, we've seen the fight. And then we saw the fight again. Not that we really need to see it because, illegal knee or not, Charles O gonna Charles O. The second time, it really gave you the feeling that like he just has Nick Lentz's number. Like Lentz is that grinding wrestler, and he's good at BJJ, and he's in your face. But Oliveira, he's sharp standing, and he butchers him standing, I think, in that second fight, and then obviously gets the guillotine to finish him off. It just gives you an idea like he's a better striker and he's a better grappler. Where is he going to have the weakness? Maybe heart and cardio, but I don't expect that to be a factor here. And the wrestling. But similar to like you're saying in that last fight, you know, with the wrestling, it's like, do you want to use your wrestling against Charles Oliveira? Like, is he not a Brian Ortega or a Ronnie Yaya? Like, he's
so dynamic that
it's a fucking no man's zone, dog.
Yeah.
You don't want to be going into those spots with Charles Oliveira. And the Lentz probably would have figured that out by now. So where else can he win this fight? Up against the cage? I don't think
He's
so.
gonna try to strike with him.
Yeah, and we've seen how that's gone already. Like, the one thing with Charles Oliveira is if you are an elite striker, you will chew him up. But if you are a mid-level striker or a low-level striker, this guy's pretty good. He's got great standing elbows. He's got good long-rangey shots. His body kick's all right. He's unbelievably strong when he does get into the clinch. Like, it's just, it's a bad fight for Nick Lentz. I don't know why the UFC booked it. I don't feel like we need to see this again. Lentz is an okay character, and he's an old Grizzly veteran. You don't mind seeing him in certain spots. Maybe him versus Jim Miller or something, or him versus Joe Lozon, but like this is not one of the spots. And Charles Oliveira, flip side to that, deserves better than this. Like, he's super entertaining, and he deserves to fight bigger name guys and get bigger paychecks. But the first fight was really fun, and the second fight was really fun, and so I don't care. This is going to be a fun fight. 365 Charles Oliveira. The only one thing I don't like about it is 365 is a big price tag, and Charles Oliveira a few times in his career
When
made you
when
very
shit's hit the
frustrated.
fan, he's crumbled for sure.
Yeah, and Nick Lentz will force that shit into the fan, and therefore maybe that's the apple pie shit.
But usually,
I don't know, but he has his number.
Usually when he plays that game, it's like his last time out when he took on Holtzman. It's just like he kind of used that wrestling to grind him down. It's just like getting in any sort of grappling exchange with Oliveira ends up with him like grabbing a calf slicer on you or something, like just grabbing something gritty, something crazy in those exchanges. Like, he doesn't need to take you down. He'll jump on your back when you're standing up. Like, he's very creative in that way.
And what was worrisome with the Scott Holtzman fight is that Holtzman was lighting him up on the feet. He had to rely on the fact that he could force a couple takedowns. When that doesn't become an option, or when you get tired and it becomes a desperation takedown, that's where Charles Oliveira snags up the neck. Mm-hmm. And again, I mean, if anybody used to watch those old little promo things he used to do back in the day, he's like got a horse in Brazil. It's like, he's got some freakish strengths to him. He's one of those guys, there's very few guys that don't need to be under your chin. They could just be on your face and they'll put you away. And again, I think as far as psychologically speaking goes, I don't know how Lentz is feeling. Like, I've gotten dusted by this guy twice, or who knows, you know? Like, maybe he's doing this.
Rochester, gross.
Yeah, and you know what? The Rochester, I don't think, it's upstate New York. They might be a pro-Trump crowd. I don't know. I just think that Charles Oliveira would be your best option because, again, not only have we seen this fight once, we've seen this fight twice. Everybody's been really impressed with Charles Oliveira lately, and Nick Lentz has proven that he's not completely shot, but he's going to grind out wins over guys like Holtzman, maybe not go out and get a win over a guy like Charles Oliveira, and that's why he's the big dog. Oliveira, 9,300. Technically, he finished him the first time, even though it was illegal, but you would have got the DK play because it wasn't a no contest that night. It was a win that night, no contest after the fact. The second time he chokes him out, it was a great DK play. This third time, he's expensive. I would much rather take Vicente Luque for $100 more. But if you know he's going to be way lower,
if they don't reprice, it's like Luque is going to be...
He's just a way better option. So,
of course.
But there's a lot of merit to Charles Oliveira.
Yep, 100%. We have Davi Ramos right in that same range. He is 9,200 minus 445 favorite. Austin Hubbard is 7,000 and plus 355. So you're going to have to make a lot of decisions on this card because you're going to have Luque, you're going to have Oliveira. Does Ramos even deserve to be in the same conversation as the two of them?
I'm going to say yes on the strict basis that maybe if we're looking at a style clash. Now, Davi Ramos surely must be somebody's best friend in upper management because the matchmaking for this guy has been impeccable ever since making a debut against Sergio Moraes, which is a tough task. Mm-hmm. It's just been largely in his favor. And in those fights, he's been scoring pretty good because they're just really not at his level. Now, when I think Chris Grutzmacher. If someone was to put me on the spot and be like, describe Chris Grutzmacher, I'd be like, geez, like middle of the pack to lower middle of the pack, grinder, not a striker, not a wrestler, not a jiu-jitsu guy. He's got heart, he's got grit, he's got a gas tank, he comes forward. He's a mid to a bottom mid-level guy. John Gunther. He can't wrestle, he can't grapple, he can't strike. He seems to have some cardio and some heart. He's a bottom to mid-level grinder. Austin Hubbard, from what I've seen, and I don't mean to disrespect him, he's 27. I'm sure he's improving, but that's where he's fitting currently. That's what he's doing as well. And against them, eventually he gets them down, and eventually he submits them. Grutzmacher, he had more resistance against him, but Grutzmacher is also better than Austin Hubbard. The fight with Nick Hein. Nick Hein at one time was seen as pretty decent. I remember breaking down that fight. I picked Nick Hein under the pretense of Davi Ramos is a world-class jiu-jitsu guy, but how is he going to take down judo black belt Nick Hein? Like nothing, man. It's like, and when he does get you to the ground, he's dusting through these lower to mid-lower level guys. And this is not even a short notice replacement. They just booked Austin Hubbard for no reason. So now let's talk about Austin Hubbard. He should be on Dana White's Contenders series, but he won the golden ticket, which is the LFA title, and that puts you on a waiting list of direct shots in the UFC, and this is where he happens to be drawing. It's a little curious to me that this fight wouldn't be taking place in Brazil, say last weekend. A little bit of card placement, I don't know. But in watching fights with him, the biggest thing that stands out is, again, he's not a striker. His striking is not particularly good. You can most definitely touch him up standing, and even though Davi Ramos is the grappler, I expect Davi Ramos to still have some decent striking exchanges against him. He's not a great wrestler, but that's where he wins most of his fights, is he goes in there, he grapples these guys to the ground. They're not very good. He's a little bit better than them. He's able to out-grab. That's right off of the table here, is that he can't take down Davi Ramos. If he does, it would be a terrible game plan. It's off the table. So the striking, I'm giving the advantage to Davi Ramos. The grappling, Davi Ramos. The one thing is, again, we're talking about who's going to apple pie shit. We have to talk about Davi Ramos as a possibility. Davi Ramos doesn't have a great gas tank. And this Hubbard kid, if there's one thing he has, 4 of his last 5 fights have gone the distance. 3 of them were 5 rounds. Mm-hmm. He can go for days. In the 5th round, 4th round, 3rd round, I could show you random rounds assorted. You would not be able to tell the difference. Like, he's got an incredible gas tank. So I think Ramos probably takes him out. But if Ramos does not take him out, it could get greasy. And that's a big price tag for something that could get greasy. But logic would dictate, when you look at this quality of opponent and how Ramos does against this quality of opponent, he scores big. He smashes. That's probably what's going to happen here. But how would he lose this fight? If he was to lose this fight, he would gas out and Hubbard would just take advantage later rounds. He's from Colorado. He trains at Elevation. And he's at Elevation. And again, I can't say enough good things about his gas tank. But outside of that, there's not much. So he should be on the Contender Series, but instead he's taking a tough fight in the UFC.
Aspen Ladd takes on the Sarge, Sijara Eubanks, at 135 pounds. Eubanks missing weight her last time out. They forced her to go up. Taking on Aspen Ladd, who struggles to make weight at 135 pounds sometimes. So there should be a big size disparity here. Aspen Ladd, 9,100 minus 290. Sijara Eubanks, 7,100 plus 245. Aspen Ladd's your baby. So...
my baby. Yeah, my baby. And she's got a big price tag. So apparently she's also now the bookie's baby. I don't like that, Paul. Yeah, I can't say enough good things. Actually, so it's funny enough, but they've already fought before. Aspen Ladd won back in Invicta. That fight was at 135 pounds. Ladd used to fight at 125 back in the day, but she's a big, thick gal. Thick with 2 C's. Mm-hmm. So she fills into her frame. She gets bigger. She fights Eubanks at 135. Eubanks is world-class jiu-jitsu, for the division, for the weight class. She's got really good jiu-jitsu. Striking, work in progress. Wrestling, she's really strong, but another work in progress. That fight happens, and I think Aspen Ladd's 21 years old, and Sijara Eubanks is 31 years old. This is arguably her in her physical prime, taking on a young, green Aspen Ladd at 135. And she struggles on the takedowns. She does able to get her taken down, but as far as the fight stays standing, Eubanks has got some decent kicks. She's got some decent elbows, but the forward movement of Ladd just stifles her at all corners. She just keeps pressuring her, keep walking her down, keep striking. Ladd, even though she's giving up a big grappling advantage in that fight, at the time, she's just young, She doesn't care. She's taking down. She's going for takedowns. She's looking to grapple with her. She just kind of breaks her down. When Eubanks does get the first takedown, Ladd gets back up. When she does get the last takedown, the round ends and it's a Ladd win. I had the fight scored 30-27. Two of the judges gave it 30-27. One had it 29-28, giving Eubanks that third round. But it's like, not only does she win very convincingly, here's a 21-year-old girl who's undefeated with her entire career in front of her, and she just defeated a 31-year-old jiu-jitsu fighter who's just getting into MMA and dipping her toes into MMA. That fight was the last fight Eubanks had at 135 before she said, I can't handle these bigger gals like Aspen Ladd. A kid, by the way. So she dropped down to 125, went on the Ultimate Fighter, had trouble cutting the weight, ends up losing her shot, beats Roxanne Modafferi, but went to decision. And just, I don't know. I'm just not convinced that she's made enough improvements, whereas Ladd's make a bunch of improvements. Ladd now struggles to make 135, whereas before she was just jumping up. Ladd's, her cardio hasn't left her. I mean, where does she look good in her two fights in the UFC against Lena Landsberg and her last fight against Tanya Evinger? It's the ground and pound, but it's the fact that when she gets you in a position where she can dominate, her pace, holy shit, dude. She just goes to town. Some people find it extremely annoying, and some people love the pure domination of it, myself included. So I think that Aspen Ladd, I think she rolls here. I'd like the money line, 290, but I never like money lines that big. It's just she should get the win. The price tag at 9,100, I feel this fight is going to go the distance. I'm feeling like if Ladd's not taking her down, she's not going to get 100 significant strikes on her ground and pound plus takedowns. Yeah. So I'm thinking
9,100 when you have Ramos, you have Oliveira,
there's better
you
plays.
have
She could score close to that. But there's better plays. There's guys on this card that have scored hundreds of points before and been spectacular.
She scored really,
good.
really well, but it's
scored
just
good.
You're gonna have to make decisions up top here, and she probably will end up being one of the lesser owned people. But I mean, if LUQUE remains at 9,400 against a guy coming in on short notice with 10 losses on the regional scene, I mean, it's hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
she's a natural pivot, but obviously, if you're max multi-entering MMEs and whatnot, she'll be in your player pool. But if you're making a couple lineups, 2-3 lineups, like I don't see how you get her on one of your lineups.
Right now, Greasy Theory, Eubanks, it's her birthday on Saturday, turning 34.
Birthday swag.
Right. So what if she just makes a wish?
Is that how it works?
Got me where I am today. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just fucking with you. I like Aspen Ladd's my girl. You know that. I ain't gonna go against her. But I don't want to get blindsided with, oh, I love her. Like, she's got a lot of improvements to make as well, man. It's just she's already fought this opponent. She demolished her.
She should be very confident coming into
this.
Like
everything's swinging her way. And I feel with the UFC, like Eubanks is on the shit list. She's 4-2, not a spectacular record.
Talked a lot of shit.
She's talked a lot of shit. She's 34 years old. She struggled to make weight and ruin the show for you. Then talk some more shit. Then struggled to make weight again. So you've thrown her up to 135 and you've said, you know what? Let's give her to that Aspen Ladd girl who we're actually pushing. We're actually trying to book good. Ladd was supposed to fight Holly Holm. Keep that in mind. So, you know what? I don't know. Maybe that's too much narrative, but yes, it has to be Ladd for myself. It's got to be Ladd.
We got Des Green taking on promotional newcomer Charles Jourdain. Des Green 9,500 minus 600 favorite. Charles Jourdain is 6,700 plus 450. Obviously, last time out we're like, oh, decision Des. He, you know, Ross is probably going to be at least able to like survive to get to a decision against Des, and Des goes out there, gets his first finish in like 9 fights, egg all over my face. Yeah. That was like the beginning of the end for the DraftKings slate there. It's just like, I had zero Des Green. And you know what? At 9,500, I don't care. The way that he fights, he's just never going to be in my consciousness at 9,500. I don't know. Maybe you can talk me off the ledge, but like, there's no way I play him at 9,500. It's just like, I know last time out, maybe there'll be some recency bias. Maybe he'll come in way over-owned compared to what he usually is. But like, how do you the guy just usually when he fights, and he's had much tougher opponents, don't get me wrong on that, but usually when he fights and he gets a decision win, he gets like 65, 70 points tops.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, unless he gets that first round finish, he's not getting 100 points. And when you have Ramos, when you have Charles Oliveira, when you have Vicente Luque potentially who stays at 9,400, and you have Julio Arce who we'll get to a little bit later, all of these guys way up there, they can score 100, 120. Like, they can get really big numbers. And unless he gets a first round finish, which will be a back-to-back first round finish after like 8 straight fights going to decision, there's no way Des Green gets there. Watch, he'll be the guy who breaks the slate again. And there'll be more egg on my face. And then the next time when they book him like this, I'll come in here and say, the last 2 times I have failed on Des Green. But there's no way I'm playing him at 9,500.
A famous Twitter man once said, statistical anomalies, Paul. And the statistical anomaly was Des Green scoring a finish. But the real statistical anomaly would be as if he was to score 2 of them. Like, how crazy would that be? It's one thing to eventually break the streak. You got to get a finish eventually. It'd be another thing to go out there and all of a sudden he's dangerous Des, not decision Des. Like, I don't know. Like, but Jourdain's 23 years old. He's never been finished. He's young. He's got a great gas tank on him. He's very durable. He's been in bad spots before. And it's not as if Des Green is all of a sudden some fantastic striker. He is a good striker, actually. I think he's really technical. It's just he doesn't have big power. The combination that he sparked Pearson with was really nice. And this is a guy that's now spending a lot of time with Henry Hoof. I'm sure his striking is getting a lot better. But the argument there is that 34-year-old Ross Pearson has seen better days and has been knocked out by not a huge amount of fighters, but has been knocked out, has been chin-checked. He's at the end of the road, retires. It's all done for him. There's a difference between that and a 23-year-old too hot to trot kid out of Quebec, who's, by the way, he is a massive fan favorite in Quebec. So even though Des Green, who's actually from Rochester, is going to be the fan favorite, this kid's going to have support. He's going to be motivated. He's going to go out there. I don't think he gets finished. I do think he gets dominated. This is a terrible spot for him. I used to say all the time, style makes fights, and this is a cancerous style for him. He is a fun, exciting, opportunistic, striker who likes to basically improv on the spot. He throws spinning stuff, he throws kicks, he throws punches, but where he struggles is his takedown defense and guys that are able just to neutralize him. Not only could Des Green probably just defeat him in a straight striking match by just being more technical and beating him with a punch, is that he's going to be able to take him down like nothing. So when you look at the career of Laramie, again, very young kid, of Jourdain, very young kid. He runs into a crossroads fight with TJ Laramie, another young kid, same weight class. One of these kids is surely going to go to the UFC. He gets thoroughly dominated 25 minutes with the wrestling. TJ Laramie, young kid, not known for his wrestling. I mean, yeah, he can wrestle, but he's a bit of a striker, a bit of a wrestler. He's not one of these D1 champions out of the States. He tosses around Jourdain. Whereas when you look at Des Green, here's a guy that actually did wrestle D1 out of Buffalo. So he's going to have the big time wrestling advantage. He's not going to get submitted off his back by Jourdain's not going to submit off his back. The thing with Green is that he's not shooting a ton of takedowns. He strikes a little, then gets a takedown, and that's about it. So if, let's say he gets 4 takedowns in this fight and lands 70 significant strikes plus a decision win, not a whole lot of guard passing. In fact, very little guard passing.
Yeah,
he's not going to score up to the level of 9,500.
That's a decent projection. That would get him to like 85 points.
That's 85 points. He's still shy. He would have the benefit that he's very lowly owned, but the people that saved $100 and ended up with Vicente Luque.
If Vicente Luque's
yes,
price
fair. And I have a feeling that DK should change it, but again.
But usually they won't.
Exactly. The last time that this happened, they didn't. So it's tough to gauge. I guess you're going to have to just wait for that one. Again, I think Green dominates this fight. I think the people that are backing Laramie, and I think they're the Canadian fans, I'm going to compare this fight to Brad Katona versus Dvalishvili. Merab. Yeah, Katona's exciting, and he's young, and he can beat opponents. But it's like, why would you give him this opponent? This is a really bad matchup for him. Because the one thing that he doesn't do, this guy is going to do extremely well, and that's the spot he's in. Green is the hometown guy. He's the guy they would like to get a win. Jourdain's actually from nearby, so he's going to sell some tickets too, and he's probably going to lose, and everyone's going to have a good time. The DK price makes no sense. The 600, you've got to parlay it, but I feel comfortable in saying Green by decision. He's not going to get that another finish, I don't believe, and that will at least give you a better price tag than the 600. Fight goes the distance, definitely.
We got Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts taking on Michel Pereira. Danny Roberts, 8,900 minus 245 favorite. Pereira 7,300 and plus 205. This guy Pereira, shit-eating wild, man.
Oh, yeah.
His highlights?
Fun times.
Holy.
Yeah.
Man, from the sounds of it, they should have just matched up Jourdain and Pereira against each other and watched these guys just like do crazy shit against each other. Pereira does the most egregiously crazy things. Like this guy's like doing like backflips in the cage for no apparent reason whatsoever. He does like these little spins and then falls into your guard. Like it is completely reckless and crazy.
Yeah.
But like in a GPP, like this guy is going for it. He is trying to finish you.
Of course.
And we've seen Danny Roberts, durability may be a bit of a question mark. When fights get real greasy and aggressive, he can be like, against Mike Perry. Like, Danny Hot Chocolate was a better technical striker than Mike Perry. But when things got really real, when shit started hitting the fan, he obviously fell apart. Maybe this Pereira guy is like the little key, the little underdog that just makes such a chaotic fight that Danny Roberts drowns. I don't know. That's where I am looking at early in the week here.
Yeah, I think the fight to make was Pereira versus Mike Perry. I mean, not even a good time that would have been. Pereira is ultra exciting, and I think that's why you bring him into the UFC. It's a no-brainer, but he's one of those guys that comes in with a super limited skill set, and it's sink or swim. Like he'll either lose his first 2 or 3 fights and you'll never see him in the UFC again, or he'll catch a chinny guy like Danny Roberts and somehow pick up the victory. He has no business winning this fight. However, the only reason that I am sitting here right now doing a show with you and not living glamorously on a yacht right now is Danny Roberts. This motherfucker is the king apple pie shitter. I cannot even tell you how many times he's blown it. And the last one was particularly frustrating against Claudio Silva because he's got I've always thought, here's a guy with some skill. Here's a guy that can strike, he can wrestle, and he's got abysmal ring IQ. And it gets him into trouble near every time. Last time out was another prime example. So I think Dana White, for whatever reason, says, hey, you know what? He didn't tap. He actually came out publicly afterwards like, oh, the kid got the short end of the stick. Here's a kid that should probably get cut. But for whatever reason, you're now giving him sympathy, saying how you feel bad for him and he got the short end of the stick. He fought a terrible game plan and did it to himself. And now we have sympathy for him. We're going to give him one more. And they give him an extremely winnable fight. But yeah, Pereira is just wild. You don't know where the strikes are coming from. I'm sure you've seen the GIF. I'm sure everybody's seen the GIF. The guy does a backflip to like a spinning back of his head kick. Like he is nuts. The thing is that he's nuts for about 5 minutes and then he's done. And like as bad as Roberts' ring IQ is, he's more talented than that. What fucked him against Perry is you're 100% right. He's a more technical striker than Mike Perry. And Mike Perry traditionally struggles against guys that are more technical strikers than him. Keep him on the outside and pick him apart. That's what he should have done. He's better grappler than Mike Perry. But he was giving up a little bit of size. And the fact is that Perry just keeps coming forward. If Perry's tired or if Perry's hurt, it doesn't matter. Perry keeps coming forward. Whereas Pereira's he's a journeyman that was been fighting in Korea as freak show fights, dicking around, being a fan favorite. Like it's fun. Like the guy, this fight is 170 pounds, right? He was fighting in open weight fights in Korea, no weight class. Like he's a fun, exciting sideshow, but he should lose this. Now, on a card full of big favorites, and a card where we're talking about who is going to shit in the pot. Yeah, Pereira's got the kind of game where it's like he could shit in anybody's pot. He could be like Lando versus Tony Ferguson that first time. Where it's like you might not even know who this guy is, but he's twirling around like a madman and he clips you. And yeah, Lando lost that fight anyways. But you don't know what you're going to get. And it's not as if I don't know what I'm going to get against some great wrestler who I have a lot of faith in, or a guy who's my boy and he's got a great chin and I feel it's like Danny Roberts was my boy after he beat another one of my boys, Jim Wallhead, 5-6 years ago. Since then, it's just been like, oof.
He's basically dead to you from the sounds of it.
Of course.
Borderline dead to you.
Paul, I'll tell you something. Everybody, including Danny Roberts' mother, jumped off the bandwagon 2 fights ago. And we came here and we broke down the Claudio Silva fight. And there was a lot of love for Claudio Silva coming in. And I said, Danny Roberts has let me down lots in the past. But I can feel it. This is the one, baby. Claudio Silva is the definition of awful. He keeps winning, so I know I look stupid saying that. But he's awful. Danny Roberts is not awful. I swear to this. But like the ring IQ is just so unbelievably bad that he does it to himself. So this fight, for example, wouldn't a great game plan be surprise him with a takedown and hold him down for the first 5 minutes. And then in the second round, when he's tired, pick him apart. You'll see all of his strikes coming. You'll be okay. But instead, he'll probably welcome some type of brawl. And when he did that against Perry, that's when his game plan went to crap. That's when he got
And he doesn't have a great gas tank himself, right? So it's like if Pereira's getting tired too, it's like if this is such like a chaotic first round, it's super high. Like Danny Roberts could be tired too. Then all bets are out the window. Who knows?
And if you want to get real greasy with it and go into the psychological thing of things, you've got Danny Roberts who 100% needs to win this fight or he's getting cut. Like I don't see any way around it. Versus this other guy who's got nothing to lose. Like, this is how he fights. He's going to get 2 or 3 fights if he does this. If he comes in and fights a different game plan, but if he does exactly what he got him here, he's going to be exciting. The fans will cheer. They'll bring him back. He's got nothing to lose. It's his debut, and he probably shouldn't be here to begin with. Versus Danny Roberts, who is one of those kind of guys, if you told me he was seeing a sports psychologist, I would not be shocked in the slightest bit.
We got Mike Trizano taking on Grant Dawson. Mike Trizano, 8,300 minus 140 favorite. Grant Dawson, 7,900 and plus 120. Any hot takes here?
Yeah, this one's more of a gut instinct. I don't know why, but this Grant Dawson guy, he had that style in that debut against EROSA. Mind you, he made Julian EROSA look way better than everybody else did. Like, EROSA was actually in that fight 100% with him. He's really green. He's really developing, but damned if I don't like this kid. Like, he's got that it factor. He's going to need some time to develop. He's like Alex Hernandez to me. Very green, skills there. He's going to get humbled a couple times, but when he does figure it out, I do think he'll be, maybe not a champion, but he'd be contending with
top
the big
15.
boys. He'd be contending with the big boys. Mike Trizano, it's not that I don't like this guy. It's that there's nothing super impressive about him. His run through Ultimate Fighter, not all that impressive. His 2 fights since then, the Luis Pena fight, the split decision. Actually, to win the Ultimate Fighter, he scored another split decision. It hasn't been a very super wowing performance from him so far. He's been basically just squeaking through these guys. The thing with the Luis Pena fight is that Luis Pena completely gassed and allowed Trizano to have the upper hand. With Dawson was smoking people out in the first round like it was nothing. Then he ran into Julian EROSA and you saw, oh shit, how are you going to act when things aren't going your way? He rallied in the third. He would have learned. So if this was Trizano versus this Grant Dawson kid right before that EROSA fight, I think Dawson tires out in the first round. Trizano greases out 2, wins 3, wins another split decision, or wins a unanimous decision in a close fight. But him having experienced that Julian EROSA fight, knowing to dig deep, getting that under your belt, he's young, he's only going to be getting better. His wrestling's really good, very aggressive. When he's on the ground, he's too aggressive a little bit with the submissions. Like he'll give up a good position to go for the submission. But again, that's all work in progress stuff. He put himself in some dumb spots against EROSA, and I think he'll have figured that out. And last thing on it is that Trizano is a Tiger Schulman guy. And even though those guys are actually decent grapplers, wrestling's not their forte, and that's where Dawson's main advantage should be. He's training partners. He's at that Glory Fitness.
MMA and Fitness
right out of Kansas.
With Zach Cummings. And
So Zach Cummins is on the card. Megan Anderson's on the card. He's on the card. James Krause will have the boys fired up. Like, I just think it's a good spot for him, and it's a good price as well. So he's one of those plays that's not getting a ton of love because it's all big favorites on this card for the most part. But he's one of those mid-range plays that I don't mind.
yeah, I like him on as a DraftKings play, 7,900 wrestling kind of style. And yeah, Trizano did not score well in his UFC bout. And Dawson, scored like 103.5 against EROSA. It was not pretty, but at least you know what type of game plan he's sticking to. Whereas Trizano is going to try to stay at range and just be a little bit longer, flash out the jabs and stuff like that. And like that's not.
And where he's had trouble is the grappling exchanges. And this Dawson kid, again, I like him because his ability to stick to what he does best.
Yep. So we're on the same page there. We have Patrick Cummings taking on Ed Herman. 8,800 Patrick Cummings, minus 240 favorite. Ed Herman is 7,400 and plus 200. It's just like, this is ugly, man. This is a really, really ugly fight that, one, based on what we've seen from Patrick Cummings in the past and, getting knocked out by Little Nug a few years ago, literally nothing should ever get us to be playing him at minus 240. Short fuse may be completely done. He doesn't have very much power. This is, on paper, a decent stylistic matchup for Patrick Cummings. But, Yeah, can you really put faith in it, especially at a minus 240 number like that? Plus on DraftKings, 8,800. Yeah, if everything goes well, he is taking short fuse down, and he's doing it over and over and over. But, like it's scary. It's scary. It's not something I want to be a part of. This is just a full-blown pass across the board because I can't trust either guy.
Yeah, well, Pat Cummins is the definition of untrustworthy. I mean, his chin's not great, and he's so athletic, and his wrestling's good, but his striking leaves so much to be desired. His punch defense is probably amongst the worst you've ever seen in the UFC.
Mustache game on point.
Right, and I'm sure that helps out his chin, but it's like simple punches seem to just wobble out his legs. So he's another play that even if he is winning the fight, you're biting your nails the entire time because it really just takes one shot to have him wobbled. Once he gets wobbled, his game goes to shit. He shoots desperate takedowns. I think he's got good cardio, but he gets hurt a lot. So it appears that he's always tired because he's on shaky legs. So as much as I like Pat Cummins, he's not one of those power heavy wrestlers that I like. He's one of those power heavy wrestlers that doesn't have a great top game, allows you to get back up, gets stung with every other shot. Eyes are always swelling up, gets beaten up. Is kind of getting older a little bit himself. Like, yeah, very untrustworthy. But Ed Herman's, not more untrustworthy because I don't think his chin's completely gone. But he's 38 years old. He has no reflexes. He has no speed. He's not the man he used to be. He used to be known because he was, his durability, his grit, good cardio, and good wrestling. And when he did get you on the ground, he could ground and pound you. He could grapple a little bit. I feel like his wrestling is just completely gone because he was never like a power double guy. He was more of like clinch you up against the cage and peel you to the ground. And he's just so slow now. Now he's fighting at 205. His best days were 5 years ago at 185. 185 to 205 is a especially big jump because it's 20 pounds and just the guys are a lot bigger. So I don't know. It's like the end of the road seems in place for Ed Herman. Ed Herman is a guy that I've always admired. Like, I always liked Ed Herman. He never was a real contender. He didn't even win the Ultimate Fighter. Eventually lost to Kendall Grove in the finale. But I always liked Ed Herman. But the last fight, he kind of was dead to me. I bet Jean Vellante, so Ed Herman just had to lose that fight, which he did. And it was a close fight. But he lost that fight. He really did. And it was a fun fight. It really was. But it's a split decision for Jean Vellante. So they interview Jean Vellante. And Ed Herman's disgusted. Disgusted he just lost a fight that he legitimately just lost. And they say, oh, Jean Vellante. And he says, oh, man, this guy's so tough. All the respect to Ed Herman. That was a war. This guy's so tough. Everyone's cheering. Then they ask Ed Herman, they're like, what do you think? The bullshit. Everybody knows I won. It's like, man, really? Like, this is the stage you're at in your career. Just have some fun fights with guys like Jean Vellante and go out, hopefully win a couple here and there. But Ed Herman has made no improvements. And whereas this is a winnable fight for him, he needs to clip Pat Cummins. Pat Cummins is legitimately getting knocked out by good guys. It's not as if nobodies are knocking him out. It's guys that have a lot of knockouts on their records.
Little Nog knocked him out.
Little Nog is
Little Nog is a nobody at this point. We learned that.
Paul,
we learned that last week, Cody.
He's in his 40s,
He's so
man.
done, dead.
Yeah, he can't take a punch.
Frankly, he was done and dead when he fought Patrick Cummings.
But he punched him in the face. And he was done and dead when he fought Sam Alvey.
But he punched him in the face. That's what they're here to do. They're there to punch each other in the face. This is a fight.
Right, but I didn't know that Ed Herman's going to... This is how I see it when I visualize the fight. CB Dollaway versus Ed Herman. CB Dollaway is roughly the same size as Herman. They're both 185ers that have moved up to 205. They're both wrestlers. CB's just got a little bit more in the tank. He's able to just take him down and neutralize him. That's exactly what Pat Cummins will be able to do. In fact, because Herman is a black belt, generally good at defending himself, if Cummins just reins it on, maybe he gets a TKO stoppage. But logic dictates he probably wins at least 2 of these 3 rounds and squeaks out some type of decision or just takes him down positionally, holds him, dominates him, gets the win. The 8,800, no way. The 240, very untrustworthy. But if for whatever reason it was to change a little bit, I'd be on that. And this is another fight too. I have no idea if it's inside or outside, like going the distance or not, because Cummins can get knocked out. And likewise, he's a freak talent. Like, he's very athletic. He could theoretically pour it on. Or he doesn't. Or he just takes him down and this is a crappy wrestling match. Like, I don't know. It doesn't usually happen with Cummins because he can't hold guys down. But Herman's not very explosive, so he can't really get back to his feet all that well. So it's just like a lot of red flags both ways. They're both like mid, lower pack guys, aging, have a similar style. Only one guy's a far superior athlete. I'm going to go with the athlete, but...
Yeah, I'll go with the athlete too.
This could be a bad play, I'm sure.
Not touching it. Anyway, we got Trevin Giles taking on Zach Cummings. Trevin Giles, 8,400, minus 150 favorite. Zach Cummings, 7,800 and plus 130. Middleweight contest between the two of them. I like Zach Cummings a lot more as a 170.
Of course.
Why? Because this guy, not exactly a natural athlete, but at 170, he was able to use that grit and his approach to the fight game, just like, pushing people up against the cage, making it real greasy, and like he was able to use his strength over people at 170. At 185, he's still slower than everybody that he's facing, and now he's got to like muscle up against guys that are bigger than him. This is a guy who got outstrengthed by a former 155er in Michel Prazeres. I don't think he's going to be able to Trevin Giles. I don't think he's going to be able to outmuscle this Trevin Giles kid, to be perfectly honest. So, as I said, I like Zach a lot more at 170, 185. I'm not loving it anymore. He just doesn't look like physically in great shape.
He never really was. But
no,
he's
but
so
like he
big.
looks better at 170.
Yeah,
now when he just like leaves that extra 15 pounds on, like he looks, he's not looking great. So give me Giles, but I'm not completely sold. What you take?
Yeah, I think Zach Cummings, and I can't call him a fan favorite because I'm sure there's very few people out there who consider themselves a big Zach Cummings fan, but he was like a likable guy. He's big. He's a blue-collar type fighter, gritty, kind of like a Court McGee. Comes forward, can wrestle a little bit, can strike a little bit, decent jiu-jitsu. He's likable. He never got those big wins, but he was likable. But size was his biggest thing, and there's a lot of fighters out there who are mid-level guys who, like even last weekend, we're talking about Kurt Holoba. Kurt Holoba's a big 45er. That's kind of his game. Now 155, yeah, he looked like he had really bad ring IQ, but it's just because he wasn't able to implement the regular game that he does. That moving up makes a big difference. Your boy Khabib, I know you'll disagree, but your boy Khabib, he's a fantastic wrestler. Who can out-grapple this guy? But if he was to move to 170 and take on Kamaru Usman, it would be significantly harder. Now, Kamaru Usman, he's a great wrestler. But if he was to move up to 185 and take on Yoel Romero, it would be significantly more difficult. So like jumping up the weight class is a tremendous task. And that's why you look at up and down this card. We forgot to mention the fact that Louis Jourdain is a 45er, has fought once at 55 against Damian Lapilus. Didn't look good. This Des Green fight's at 55. So again, there's a lot of fights on this card where it's like the weight class is going to play a big thing. Size is going to play a factor. Aspen Ladd will be bigger than Eubanks. I expect that to be a factor. The Megan Anderson fight, that size could be a factor. Carlos Jr., such a big guy, could be a factor. I look at this as well. Cummins' advantage was that he had size. Now, 185, it's just not there. And on top of that, he's 34 years old now. If you look at his last couple of fights at 170, he's really slow. He's never really an athletic guy, but it's catching up with him. 185 is supposed to kind of rejuvenate him a little bit. Hey, he's getting older. He can't cut all that weight. I just don't see it going this way. Trevin Giles is a better boxer. Trevin Giles is way faster than him. He's got good punching power. He's just going to piece him up from the outside. Yeah, Cummins has got training partners on the card in Dawson and Megan Anderson, and I'm sure he's in great shape, but you got to feel like Giles is a young prospect on his way up, undefeated, looks good, and you've got Zach Cummins who, I'm going to argue
is not even fighting at his at his better weight class, because he was actually decent at 170. He was a tough matchup for people, but
yeah, exactly. Now when I think I like Zach Cummins. Hey, we've had some good times with Zach Cummins.
He's made me a lot of money over the years.
Of course.
But I've known when to jump off of him. I was on Prazeres against him. I just thought that he wasn't going to be able to. Whether he can outmuscle his opponent.
No. There's a different way of looking at it. I used to think the same way. Can he outmuscle his opponent? Then I got thinking, you know what? There's an easier way to do this. And you look at his wins. Benny Alloway. Jan Cabral. Dominic Steele. Nicholas Dalby. Alexander Yakovlev. Actually still signed, shockingly enough.
Yeah, but they brought him back from Russia.
Yeah, but he won.
He may never come back again. That was a one.
I thought he was cut. Had I not seen that, I would have thought he was cut. Nathan Coy. Trevor Hot Sauce Smith. Like, he's beaten a lot of guys that
Hot Sauce been cut?
Well, I assumed after that. What's his record of late?
I don't know.
You could be right about Hot Sauce, but you know what? Hot Sauce is he's 1-3 in his last 4 losses to Andrew Sanchez, Elias Theodorou, and Zach Cummings, all by decision, all real boring. The one win.
He's one tough matchup away from getting that.
Yeah. And if you want to play him, his wins over Tortrong, Dan Miller, Joe Gigliotti, and Chris Camozzi. There's that stupid cliche saying, I don't even like it. It was like, there's levels to this. I used to like saying it. And everybody started saying it, kind of got overused a little bit. Hipster Cody don't like that. But yeah, there are levels to this shit. Those guys are fighting each other because that's the level that they're at. Trevin Giles has legitimately won a legitimate regional show title, came to the UFC. Tough fight against Braga Nito, a guy that was coming off a long layoff, but, you know, learning experience. He's heading in the right direction. His whole gym's on fire. They're all fighting well. Yeah, I mean, I think Trevin Giles is a no-brainer. And it becomes a no-brainer when you think this card's got such bad value on it that he is minus 150, 8,400.
Reasonable price.
Very reasonable as far as prices go. So as much as I do,
you don't
like
have to
Zach
parlay
Cummins,
him up. You can actually just play him straight.
Yeah, and Giles, it looks like he is improving because there are some holes there, but he's young and he's improving. And every fight he'll be a little bit better. Whereas Cummings, I can't say those exact same things.
And finally, we have Julio Arce taking on Julian Erosa, Juicy J. Arce is 9,600, most expensive guy in the card, minus 650 favorite. Erosa is 6,600 and plus 475. Our friend YC Lindsay, probably the only person on earth who has some money probably on Julian Erosa, and probably is going to play Julian Erosa on DraftKings, but like he's a shitting wild man who holds a 1-0 song bets record against me. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
but there are
Paul.
people out there trying to make a song bet on this Erosa fight
Between
against
the two of
him. No. I know him well enough to know that he will not let his love for Julian Erosa get him in trouble. Why would you take that bet?
You could get a 3-1 here, Paul, and a 6.5 to 1 here, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. I don't blame him for not doing it, but people are trying to bully him into it, and I hope that he crumbles, but I don't think he will. But it's Juicy J. Guy doesn't have much durability. He held up against Grant Dawson in his last time out, but Julio Arce, I don't really see any part of the game that Julian Erosa has an advantage, to be perfectly honest. Arce has the better grappling, striking, comes from a better camp. Like every single pro versus con, all the pros are on Julio Arce. I get the minus 650. It is what it is. It's just if he goes out there and knocks him out really, really fast, maybe Arce is a fade at the top. Like that 9,600 is super, super tough to fit into any builds, especially when you want to save a little bit. Like LUQUE, if his price stays the same at 94, you save 200 and you get LUQUE against somebody with zero UFC experience. At least Juicy J's been in there.
Yeah, but you've seen him get sparked in there. And whereas people will say, hey, last time against Grant Dawson, didn't get sparked. Grant Dawson's not a striker. Right? No. Like the strikers spark him. The wrestlers apparently grapple him.
Yeah.
And in this spot, he's back to taking on a striker who also has the benefit of being the better wrestler and likely being better at jiu-jitsu as well. Not only is Arce just a better, kickboxer all around, but like 2-time Golden Glove winner out of New Jersey.
Yeah.
The guy's good. His last fight, Sergio, what's his name?
Moraes.
Yeah. No. Shaman Moraes.
That was a tough matchup.
A tough matchup and a good fight. And he was on a roll and he's beating guys up and he beats Dan Ige, which in hindsight actually looks like a real nice little win. And he beats Tamor and it's like, hey, this guy's he's headed, down the right path. It's like you're gonna need some of those bumps in the road. I think a loss to Shaman, who's a top talent, there's no shame in that. It's a learning experience. We're going to get a better version of him here. The thing is, he's really crisp and he's really technical. And with Erosa, he's very unorthodox and as a result, very open. He's like, sorry, YC Lindsay, but he's a poor man's Dominic Cruz. Like he tries to move the same with his hands down and kind of like swinging hooks, like close the door, swing the door, get out of the way, back away, hands down, goat you. He's long. He's got a nice little jab to him, but it's a lazy jab. It's easily to just counter it over the top. What I'm getting at is I think he'll get complacent for 2 seconds in a striking exchange with Arce and get fucking sparked. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not a genius for telling you that. It's $650. It's $9,600. That's what everybody seems to be thinking is going to happen, but I'm on board with that. That's probably what happens here. I like Erosa too. And I actually had a lot of respect for him, like a lot of love for him going into that Dawson fight, saying, hey, people are disrespecting him, saying he's got no chin. He's got a shot here. And he fought a good fight. But ultimately, he's not at this level. He wins every fight outside of the UFC, and he loses every fight inside of the UFC. Again, that level shit, he kind of falls into that category. Whereas Arce deserves to be here. He won his fight on the Contender Series. He looked good. He came to the UFC. He was fighting, building block opponents and looking good. Prior to that, his regional scene run for Ring of Combat, flawless. Like outside of the 2 losses to Brian Kelleher, who, by the way, Kelleher also made it to the UFC. Like he's done it the right way, and so I think Arce gets the win here. The 96 is a hell of a price tag, and the 650, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. It's warranted, but it is what it is. The only one thing I can say is if LUQUE stays at 94, or let's say they re-release it at 96, he's still a way better play than Julio Arce, sorry. So you would have that, but a lot of people are going to be on it. With Charles Oliveira, we've seen this fight happen twice already. People are going to be on it. With Des Green, it's like it seems just like the most tailor-made of matchups of all times.
I don't think people are going to be on that.
No, but some people, because he's a big favorite, they might. I don't know. I don't think anybody who actually plays DK seriously does. But there's a lot of lineups in there where I think people are just clicking numbers, and those may play him. But Julio Arce might be that guy that floats under the radar, who's got a good chance of getting a first round finish. Maybe worth a look.
And because he's so expensive, maybe he comes in under own because people save a couple $100 here and there to try to move down.
But it's hard to save.
It's a really tough card to make lineups for, to be honest, because like. You're gonna need the top scorers, and it's just like you can make very good reasons for Arce and Davi Ramos and Charles Oliveira and Vicente Luque, and all of these guys may get first round finishes and everything like that. And you're playing such a minute game where it's like, well, but Luque got an extra knockdown, so he got an extra 10 points. So everybody with Luque just moves past everybody who took Arce instead. That's how this game is going to play out this week.
I find the problem is because there's so many high price tags that you're going to take one of them, and imagine you tried to take 2 of them. You're going to really need to invest in your value plays. Yeah. And like we were talking about last week. Last week we had good plays. We had Jared Canyard. We got Jessica Andrade. We got people at a good price. But we had no Guerra because we were trying to save some money, and he got sparked stiff and scored no points. So the one loss, it does, in fact, ruin your chances at winning the big GPP tournament, which is what ultimately people do want to win. So when I look at this card, if we're going to take those expensive guys, well, then what are the value plays? So if you were a Kevin Lee guy, 8,000, it's good, but what's the real value? KRANTZ, I can't get behind that. No. HEINISCH 75, everybody's on it. So it'd be so nice to fade that if he was to lose and have somebody else. That would really help you. Spencer at 77, there's some worth there. She could score bad. 77 is a nice price considering she does have some upside. LENTZ at 69, I don't like it. Hubbard at 7,000, I'm like a half. It's good value. EUBANKS, I can't even deny this. It's actually decent value considering the other options. JOURDAIN, I do not like. Michelle Pereira, that's some value if you're going for the big one.
Yeah, that's a $15 GPP play guy.
Dawson sub 8,000. He's sub 8,000, but that's not real value. Ed Herman, he can win, and if he does win, he is going to score a lot of points because it's Cummins, but I can't in good faith tell you to bet Ed Herman. No. Zach Cummings, I do not like at all, and Julian Erosa, I do not like at all. So, you know what I mean?
Super tough.
Yeah, it's few and far between, right? I think a lot of people will be on those ones. The people that want to go away from the pack are the people that are going to take maybe Austin Hubbard, or the people that are going to take maybe they do take an Ed Herman. There's high upside, but you're going against the stream, and in theory always sounds good, but there's sometimes where it's so obvious. You if it does not change, I feel like you really do need LUQUE. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he slips on a banana peel, and as he's ripping his ACL, he gets caught by a punch and goes out cold. I don't know. I'm going to have to wait till see Saturday. But if you're a numbers guy, that's the number, right? You have to jump on that.
How's Cookie?
Cookie finished 5th yesterday in London. I don't want to say bad trips. Like, she had the 7-hole in London's just killer for that. Finished 2nd the week before in London. So I think we're going to give her a week off and then do her at Flamborough. So she's got
When are we going to start being able to, I want insider information on betting on horses.
She won at Flamborough the last time she was there. She went off as the favorite. So, did you really want to bet her? The best option would be if I could tell you.
What was her price?
When she went off as the favorite? 8-5.
Okay, well.
It's not a good price.
Not for horse. Yeah, horses, when they're favorites, it's you want 3-4 to 1 as depending on the race, obviously, and the competitors. But it's 3 to 4 to 1, it's okay, I can get behind on that.
I would rather just not be the favorite and say, geez, you know what? I looked at the field and a couple of these ones are soft, and I know this horse is ready, and I think she'll have a good trip, and she's 7 to 1. Last night, for example, she went off at 9 to 1.
Are you able to bet these?
I can only.
Are you in trouble for saying anything about betting? Like it's your horse. Are you allowed to bet on your own horse? Like there's no
only your own horse.
Yeah.
In that race, you can bet on whatever other race as long as you don't own, train, or drive.
Yeah, you can't bet on one of its opponents and then all of a sudden, oh, my horse pulled up lame in the last 20 yards.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Yeah, it'd be like Ali Abdelaziz betting on the other guy. Oh, wait a second. Maybe that's why he's trying to get Cody Garbrandt to come back. I'm kidding. Hopefully I don't take too much heat for that one. But yeah, no, this is, a lot of people are saying this is not a good card. And what you got to realize is this is the new norm for the UFC. So like, I'm kind of getting tired of being like, this is a bad card. It's like,
yeah, we just have to get used
this is what it is. Somebody mentioned to me today, the UFC should have never closed Strikeforce. They should have just had Strikeforce be their like their official feeder and have these all the Strikeforce cards. And like, I agree. I don't know what the UFC is doing. They're just like saturating their own market. But this is the new norm. And when I look at it,
they sign deals with the ESPNs or the Foxes, and like they're like, we want 45 3-hour segments of or whatever. We want this many hours of content provided to us. So that's why we need 45 cards. And then, you know, your active roster goes like, we can't fight 6 times a year. Some guys are willing to do it, but you can't force people to go in there and fight. So that's why you get, you know, Michel Pereira and Charles Jourdain and Austin Hubbard and all of these other people who may not necessarily really actually be on this level, but just like, you're literally just filling spots at this point. And like that's kind of what the UFC is doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
That doesn't mean that it's a bad card. It could be very, very highly entertaining. That's the way we have to kind of look at it.
That's how I'm kind of seeing it, because when we're a lot of cards recently, there's a lot of decisions and there's a lot of fights you just don't care about. Julio Arce versus EROSA, you could get a sweet highlight out of that. Mm-hmm. And any fight with Pat Cummins could theoretically have a pretty cool highlight, whether he's on the wrong end of it or not. And Danny Roberts versus Pereira, it seems like a highlight is destined to happen. And Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz, it's like worth the price of admission here, boys. And Rafael Santos versus Kevin Lee is fun. Yeah. And LUQUE might become the first UFC contracted fighter to kill a man in the octagon. So like, you could get a highlight out of that too. I would never wish that on anybody, not good one. But I'm just saying this could be a fun card. It really could be. So hopefully we're on the winning side of that, because cards that are exciting are always more sweet. Or should I say always sweeter when you get that money, baby. So there's not a lot of value here, Paul. But hopefully the people we suspect will be the apple pie shitters will not be in our tickets.
100%. Thank you, Cody Saftic, breaking down the fights with me. As always, thanks to our producer, Chad, for doing all the sweet cuts and all the other stuff behind the scenes there. For Cody and Chad, I am Paul, saying goodbye and good luck.
MMA experience! Experience!